Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is meeting today with British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak in the United Kingdom. He announced a new package, Sunak that is, of support for Ukraine's military that includes hundreds of air defense missiles ahead of the highly anticipated spring offensive. Sunak also promised to start training Ukrainian fighter pilots this summer. That is key. He has said fighter jets are on the table, but has not yet taken that step. Zelensky has been touring NATO countries seeking to bolster support for Ukraine. He traveled over the weekend to meet the Chancellor in Germany, Olaf Scholz, also President Emmanuel Macron in France, and Italy's President Mattarella, also Pope Francis while he was there at the Vatican. Meanwhile, Russia's military is dealing with setbacks, including 2 commanders killed on the battlefield in eastern Ukraine. On top of this, over the weekend, the Washington Post reported classified document leaks reveal that President Zelensky, the U.S. believed, was plotting an attack inside of Russia. U.S. officials tell CNN the administration is not aware of Ukraine using U.S.-provided weapons to attack Russian territory. There's a lot to get to, so let's begin this hour with Sam Kiley. He is live in eastern Ukraine with more. Sam, good morning. What is key here? I mean, obviously it's key to get that British training of Ukrainian fighter pilots, but what else comes out of this meeting today?
Well, it comes towards the end of. We didn't know that he was actually going to even attend this meeting in London. We thought that it was his European tour. This is President Zelensky, who's been in Rome, been in Berlin, and then in Paris, and now in London. In all 3 places, he's managed to secure fulsome support of very key, important, powerful European nations. In the case of Germany, $3 billion almost of military aid. In the case of the United Kingdom, yet another pledge, this time, among other things, for anti-aircraft missiles and that very important fighter jet training program. Now, the Brits have said that the Ukrainians have actually backed away from asking the British for Typhoon, but they have added their voice to Zelensky's in saying that they would like to see the world, the allies supporting Ukraine, give Ukraine F-16s. That, of course, has not yet happened. But what this does do is cement support behind Ukraine in a very material sense ahead of this anticipated summer offensive. Pop here, Caitlin.
What can you tell us about the advancement in Bakhmut, Sam?
Well, this is significant on a tactical level. It shouldn't be seen as part of the summer offensive, although, of course, if they gain initiative there, it'd be very unlikely that the Ukrainians would fail to exploit it. But they have driven the Russians back across 2 fronts, basically to the north and south of Bakhmut, provoking the mercenary organization Wagner to say that it's fearful that it may get encircled by Ukrainian troops. They have been able to exploit friction between Wagner and the regular Russian armed forces, a lack of coordination, and part of, I think this is very significant indeed, in the wider psychological campaign that Zelensky's trip to Europe is part of, which is saying to the ordinary Russian soldier, you may not live to see the end of this year. We've got a lot of gear, we've got a lot of initiative, we've got a lot of intelligence. We can reach out now behind your lines with things like Storm Shadow from the United Kingdom, with our own Ukrainian-built cruise missiles that you're seeing in action. We can get behind you and start knocking off your logistic support. Trying to break the will of the Russian soldier is probably the preeminent objective at this moment.
Fascinating. Sam Kiley reporting from eastern Ukraine. Thank you for that.
Ukraine's President Zelensky is meeting with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Mr. Zelensky is fresh off a weekend of stops in European capitals to meet with other key allies.
France and Germany publicly pledged additional military aid for Ukraine's war against Russia, and Prime Minister Sunak will do the same. The UK's package will include air defence missiles and new attack drones with a range of more than 200 kilometres. For more on this story, we're joined by Claire Sebastian. Claire, I mean, we gave our viewers a hint just then of what the objectives of this trip have been. But what are Zelensky's key priorities to take away from this visit?
So I think obviously weapons is the key thing. He came off a really big pledge from Germany. $3 billion package was promised over the weekend, including another 30 Leopard tanks. France is sending more armoured vehicles, and now we have the UK with these air defence systems and air defence missiles and attack drones. So clearly, look, we're heading into this counter-offensive. The statement from Downing Street literally says that this is coming as Ukraine prepares for an intensified period of military activity. So they're trying to step up support so that Ukraine has what it needs. There was an interesting part of the statement, though. There's clearly been a slight shift in tone when it comes to fighter jets, Western-style fighter jets like F-16s. The last time that Zelensky was in the UK in February, the UK was very clear that it was going to train. It came out in front and said, we're going to train fighter pilots, but this is about Ukraine's long-term capabilities. Now we have a statement saying they're going to start an elementary flying phase for a cohort of Ukrainian pilots this summer. This training, the statement says, goes hand in hand with UK efforts to work with other countries on providing F-16 jets, Ukraine's fighter jets of choice. So it looks like the UK is stepping up pressure. It is the country that likes to come out in front with these things. And I think for Zelensky, this is also really clearly about optics. He has done this all along. He wants to be seen to be taking his place among these NATO countries, among these EU countries. And of course, this is coming ahead of a G7 summit this week, the really important NATO summit in July. So I think that's part of it as well.
In terms of the counter-offensive, obviously we don't know exactly when it's going to be, but is there any sense that we'll get to a position soon where he's confident enough to go in?
Well, he did say over the weekend that the first important steps will be happening soon. They're obviously going to be very cagey and they're not going to offer any sort of early announcement or details about this. We are, though, seeing that Ukraine is having some incremental success around Bakhmut, where just a few weeks ago it seemed like Russia had the upper hand. We're hearing this morning from the commander of the land forces there that they have seen, he says, the first success in the defence of Bakhmut, although he called it a partial success. And the deputy defence minister saying Ukraine has been advancing for several days, although against all the odds. And she says Russia isn't changing its goals and they've been moving air assault units to the outskirts of Bakhmut. So it looks like things are sort of edging on Ukraine's side over there, but still extremely difficult.
Is there a concern in Ukraine about war fatigue setting in for European partners, NATO allies such as the US? Is that also what this trip is about?
You know, I think that Zelensky is probably keenly aware of that, and that is why these optics matter. Obviously, this since 2014, this has been about Ukraine's desires to be part of Europe. So he is, in a sense, bringing that to some degree to fruition for his people with these meetings. And he's grown in confidence in order to do this. You know, for the first, I think, 9 or 10 months of the war, he didn't actually leave Ukraine once, and then had that, you know, big trip to the US in December, the European tour in February, and now on a second tour. I think we can see him. That was in Berlin on Sunday. But that's why these optics matter, because they matter for the Ukrainian people who want this to be the result. And of course, it matters for Moscow, who is not going to be happy to see him in all these capitals.
Colette Sebastian, thank you so much. We'll keep you around as we might get more pictures and information about his meeting.